There was nothing out of the ordinary about the day I found it. A typical Tuesday, I suppose. I had just gotten home from running errands, carrying groceries into the kitchen when I noticed something odd. Her bag was left wide open, sprawled across the living room couch. The zipper was half pulled, the leather slightly scuffed, and there, tucked inside, was a flash of something metallic. I paused. The thought to ignore it crossed my mind, but it was just a momentary hesitation. I had seen her bag 1,000 times before. I knew what was in it. Or at least I thought I did. But this time was different. I went closer, my curiosity outweighing the usual hesitation to respect someone else's privacy. As I approached, my fingers brushed against the edge of a small velvet box hidden beneath a few papers and receipts. I didn't know why I opened it. There was no reason to believe anything was amiss. But something about the way the box shimmered beneath the dim light in the room called out to me. I lifted the lid. The moment I saw the ring, everything in my life seemed to stop. It wasn't just any ring. It was a beautiful engagement ring. Platinum, with a large emerald in the center. Something about it felt wrong, like it didn't belong in that bag. It wasn't just the ring that made my blood run cold. It was the realization that I didn't recognize it. It wasn't mine. I had never bought her anything like that. My fingers trembled as I closed the box. I couldn't even remember the last time I had touched her bag, but I could swear that this was not something I had ever seen before. I forced myself to take a breath, my mind spinning in 100 directions, trying to rationalize the situation. Maybe it was a gift from one of her clients, I told myself. Maybe it was just a mistake, something she was keeping for a friend. But then I noticed something else, a piece of paper folded neatly inside the box. I unfolded it carefully, feeling the weight of it press against my fingers as I read the words that would change everything. I never meant for it to go this far. But now, I can't hide it anymore. I'm sorry. You deserve better than this. It's over. I never wanted to hurt you. But I can't stay in a lie any longer. My hands shook. I read the note again, as if expecting it to say something different. But no matter how many times I looked at it, the words remained the same. This wasn't a goodbye. This was the end. I stood there, the world feeling suddenly too big, too overwhelming. This was not how it was supposed to be. She'd always been loving, attentive, and kind. She was the one person I could always count on. Or, at least, that's what I thought. I turned the note over, hoping for something, anything, that could explain this. But there was nothing else. Just those words. Just that ring. And then it hit me. I hadn't even seen her since this morning. She was out with friends for the evening. I thought she'd be home in a few hours. My heart raced. I couldn't stay here, not with the weight of that ring in my hands, not with the unsettling silence of the apartment. I needed answers, and I needed them fast. I rushed to the bedroom, my mind racing 1,000 miles per hour. The bag was still lying there on the couch, but I could no longer ignore what was happening. My wife, the woman I trusted more than anyone, was hiding something from me. But what? I had no idea what I was walking into. But when I found that ring, that note, and realized everything was built on a lie, it felt like I was falling. Falling fast. As I heard the sound of the door unlocking, a cold sweat broke out across my forehead. Lena was home. I stood frozen, still clutching the velvet box in my hands, my mind racing. I heard the familiar sound of keys jingling at the front door, followed by the soft click as it opened. My heart pounded in my chest. I couldn't breathe. Lena was home. I quickly shoved the box back into her bag, hoping she wouldn't notice the tremble in my hands. I tried to act normal, but it felt impossible. Every part of me wanted to confront her right then and there, to demand answers, but I couldn't. Not yet. I had to be smart about this. If she knew I was onto her, I'd never get the full truth. She walked in, dropping her things with a small sigh of relief. "Hey," she said, her voice soft, like she hadn't just shattered my world into pieces. I barely responded, my thoughts trapped in a whirlwind of confusion and disbelief. Lena came into the living room, sitting down beside me with her usual warm smile, her eyes sparkling as she began talking about her day. But I couldn't focus on her words. I was barely aware of what she was saying. All I could think about was the ring, the note, and how everything felt like a lie. "I missed you," she said, leaning in to kiss me. I forced myself to kiss her back, though every fiber of my being screamed for me to pull away. I wanted to question her right then, to scream, but I held back. I couldn't let her know that I was already one step ahead of her. "I missed you too," I said, my voice flat. She seemed to take it as a compliment, smiling brightly as she moved to the kitchen to start unpacking her bags. I stood there, unable to follow. My mind was too far gone. What was I supposed to say? How was I supposed to ask her about a ring I didn't even know existed? I told myself I'd wait. I'd give her a chance to tell me on her own. But deep down, I knew that wasn't going to happen. Not voluntarily. Lena was always one to keep things close to her chest, and whatever was going on, it wasn't something she was going to share easily. I had to find out everything, and I had to do it without tipping her off. The ring, the note, it all pointed to something much bigger. Something she'd been hiding for God knows how long. As I tried to settle into the couch, I couldn't focus on anything. I was trapped in my own head, replaying the events of the day over and over, trying to piece together a puzzle I wasn't ready to solve. Suddenly, Lena came back into the room, carrying a small glass of wine. "You look a little out of it," she said, sitting down beside me. I managed a half-hearted smile. "Just tired," I muttered, hoping she wouldn't see through me. She seemed to buy it. "I know," she said, taking a sip of her wine. "I'll tell you all about my trip tomorrow. But tonight, we should just relax. We both need it." Her words were warm, but they felt cold to me. I couldn't stop thinking about the ring, about the note, about the fact that the woman I loved had just opened a door to a truth I wasn't ready to face. I watched her for a moment, wondering how long this had been going on. How long had she been lying to me? And who was she lying for? Was there someone else? I didn't know what to think anymore. All I knew was that something was horribly wrong, and I was too deep into this to back out now. I spent the next hour in a haze, half listening to Lena talk about her trip, her clients, and everything else that seemed so distant now. She was smiling, laughing at something I couldn't even remember, while I sat there, pretending to care. Every word she spoke felt like a hollow echo. She had no idea I knew, no idea what I had discovered, and I couldn't decide if that made things worse or better. Lena finished her wine, standing up to head to the kitchen. I followed her with my eyes, trying to focus, but my thoughts kept drifting back to that damn ring. What was it doing in her bag? Why hadn't she mentioned it? She never hid anything from me before. Not like this. I told myself I'd wait. I had to. I couldn't blow this too soon. But the longer I sat there, the more the silence between us felt suffocating. It wasn't just her absence when she went to the kitchen. It was the presence of that truth I could no longer ignore. I couldn't stop replaying the note in my head. "I'm sorry. You deserve better than this. It's over." The words felt like a punch in my gut. What had gone so wrong? Lena came back into the room, holding her phone in her hand. "I'll be right back," she said, glancing at the screen. "I just need to check something for work." I nodded without thinking, barely paying attention as she left the room again. The moment she was out of sight, I felt an overwhelming urge to go back to her bag, to dig deeper, to understand what was happening before it completely spiraled out of control. I stood up, my feet carrying me toward the couch where her bag still lay, forgotten in the middle of the room. My heart raced as I opened it again, my hands shaky. This time, I wasn't going to stop at the ring. I needed answers. I felt around for anything that might give me a clue, anything that would explain what was happening. My fingers brushed over some receipts, then a crumpled piece of paper. I pulled it out, unfolding it carefully, my mind still spinning from the note inside the box. At first, I thought it was just a random piece of junk, but then I realized it was another note. My stomach twisted. What the hell was this? I read it aloud to myself in disbelief. "I can't keep pretending anymore. It's all too much. I never wanted to hurt you. But this is where we are now." My head was swimming. I couldn't catch my breath. The words were so similar to the first note, but different enough to make my skin crawl. I heard Lena coming back down the hallway, and I immediately shoved the note back into her bag, my heart racing. I barely had time to sit down before she entered the room again, her face glowing from the screen of her phone. "Everything okay?" she asked, sitting next to me. I swallowed hard, forcing a smile. "Yeah, everything's fine," I lied. She smiled back, but I couldn't shake the feeling that there was a growing chasm between us. And with every passing second, the lies I had once trusted seemed to unravel further. I watched her for a moment, the woman I had once thought I knew, and the woman who, somehow, had become a stranger in my own home. We sat in silence for a long time after that, a thick weight hanging in the air between us. I could feel the tension like an invisible thread pulling us further apart, and I knew that something had changed. But what? The night dragged on, the air thick with an unspoken tension that neither of us addressed. Lena went to bed early, claiming she was tired from her trip, but I couldn't sleep. How could I? Every time I closed my eyes, the image of that ring, that note, haunted me. The ring wasn't for me. It wasn't meant for me. But what was it for? I could hear her soft breathing from the bedroom, and for a moment, I thought about how easily things had once seemed between us, how simple everything had been. But now, nothing felt the same. The room that had once felt like home now seemed alien to me, filled with secrets I hadn't known existed. Around midnight, I couldn't take it anymore. I had to confront her. No more waiting. No more pretending I didn't know. I stood up from the couch, my heart hammering in my chest, and slowly walked to the bedroom. The hallway seemed impossibly long, my feet feeling heavier with every step I took. When I reached the door, I stopped. I listened. Lena was asleep, or at least I assumed she was. I pushed the door open just a crack, enough to peek inside. She was lying on her side, her back turned to me, her hair spilling across the pillow. Everything looked normal, peaceful even. But I knew better. There was nothing normal about this. I stepped into the room, and for a moment, I just stood there, watching her sleep. My stomach twisted, the weight of the moment pressing on my chest. I had to do this. I had to know the truth. I walked over to the bed, sat on the edge, and gently shook her shoulder. "Lena," I whispered, trying to keep my voice calm. "Wake up." She stirred, blinking slowly, her eyes adjusting to the dim light. For a moment, she didn't seem to notice anything was wrong. "Hey," she mumbled, a tired smile tugging at the corner of her lips. "What's going on? Is everything okay?" "Everything's fine," I said, forcing myself to sound casual, though inside I felt like I was about to break. I need to ask you something." She propped herself up on one elbow, looking at me with confusion in her eyes. "What's going on, Theo? You look different." I swallowed hard, the words catching in my throat. "I found something today, Lena." Her expression shifted immediately, something flickering in her eyes that I couldn't place. It wasn't fear, but it was something close. "What do you mean?" she asked, sitting up fully now, the covers slipping off her shoulders. "The ring," I said, my voice barely a whisper. "The note. I found them in your bag." She froze, her face draining of color. For a moment, neither of us spoke. The silence between us felt like an eternity. "I can explain," she said quickly, her voice shaky. "It's not what you think." I didn't say anything. I couldn't. What could I say? I had the note in my mind, the words she wrote. "It's over," she had said. "I never wanted to hurt you." I leaned forward, my gaze never leaving hers. "Then explain it to me, Lena. Explain why you have a ring that isn't mine. Explain the note that says it's over. Explain why you've been hiding this from me." She opened her mouth to speak, but no words came out. Instead, she just stared at me, her face a mixture of guilt and sorrow. "Lena, I'm not stupid," I said, my voice rising slightly now. "I don't know what's going on, but I need to know the truth. I need you to tell me." She closed her eyes for a moment, taking a deep breath. When she opened them again, I saw something in them that I hadn't expected. There was no anger, no defensiveness, just sadness. "I didn't want you to find out like this," she said quietly. "I never wanted to hurt you, Theo. But I can't lie anymore. I haven't been honest with you for a long time." The words hit me like a punch to the stomach. I didn't know what to say. "What are you talking about?" I asked, barely able to speak. She looked away, her voice barely audible. "There's someone else." I felt the blood drain from my face. The room spun. "What?" She nodded, her eyes brimming with tears now. "I didn't mean for it to happen. I never thought I'd fall for him. But I did. And it's been going on for months now." I stood up, stepping back from the bed as if her words had physically pushed me away. How long?" "Since the spring," she whispered. "I know this isn't what you wanted to hear. But I couldn't keep lying to you. I'm sorry, Theo." I didn't know what to feel. Anger? Betrayal? Hurt? They all swirled inside me like a storm. My thoughts were jumbled. How could she do this? How could she lie to me for so long? But at the same time, a part of me wasn't surprised. I had known something was wrong. The distance, the late nights, the trips she suddenly had to take. I had felt it all along, even if I hadn't wanted to admit it to myself. I just stood there, staring at her, unable to find the right words. What could I even say to her? The silence in the room was deafening. I didn't know what to say to her. I couldn't even move. I had spent years trusting this woman, And now I was standing here, hearing that she had been seeing someone else for months. It was like a bad dream I couldn't wake up from. Lena was still sitting on the bed, her eyes wide with guilt. Theo, I'm so sorry, she said, her voice barely a whisper. I shook my head, the disbelief still choking me. How could you do this? How long were you planning to keep this from me? She wiped at her eyes, clearly torn. I never meant for it to go this far. It started out innocent, just small things. Texts, meetings, and then it escalated. I didn't know how to stop it. I didn't know how to tell you. I let out a bitter laugh, more from disbelief than anything else. Innocent? Lena, you've been lying to me for months. How could that be innocent? She looked away, unable to meet my eyes. I never wanted to hurt you, but I was lonely, and he made me feel alive again. The word stung. Loneliness. She knew how much I loved her, how much I had always tried to be there for her. How could she throw that all away for someone else? I don't even know who you are anymore, I said, my voice breaking. I thought I knew everything about you. Lena reached out, her hand trembling as she tried to touch mine, but I pulled away. Please don't, I said. Just don't touch me. Her face crumpled in pain. I never wanted to hurt you like this. You've been the best husband I could have asked for. That stung too. Then why? Why did you do it? Why did you betray me? She swallowed hard, tears streaming down her face. I was scared, Theo. Scared that everything would fall apart. That we would end up just existing, not really living. I needed something more. The words hung in the air, heavy and suffocating. She wasn't even sorry for what she'd done. She was sorry she got caught. And that hurt even more than the affair itself. She wasn't apologizing for the betrayal. She was apologizing for the consequences. I stood there, unable to move, every part of me shaking with anger, disbelief, and sorrow. So what now, Lena? Do you want to be with him? I asked, the question escaping before I could stop it. She hesitated, looking away. I don't know, she admitted, her voice raw. I don't know what to do anymore. I never meant for this to happen. I could feel my chest tightening, the pain rising like a tidal wave. So that's it. You don't know what to do? After everything? She shook her head, the tears falling faster now. I don't expect you to forgive me. I know I don't deserve it. But I want to make things right. I don't know how, but I'll try. I laughed again, but it wasn't a laugh. It was a cry. How can you make things right, Lena? How do you undo all the lies? How do you make up for everything you've taken from me? She didn't answer. She just sat there, her shoulders trembling. I could see the regret in her eyes, but it didn't make it any easier to hear. I turned and walked out of the room. I couldn't stay in that house, not with her sitting there, crying over what she had done. I needed space. I needed to breathe. I grabbed my jacket and left, not caring where I went, just knowing I had to get away from her. The pain in my chest felt like it was suffocating me. I didn't know where I was going, but I knew I couldn't stay. The anger, the hurt, it was all bubbling up inside of me, threatening to spill over. My mind was racing. Lena's words, her excuses, her tears, it all felt like a blur. How could she think that any of this could be fixed with a few apologies? I found myself walking down a dark street, the cool air hitting my face like a slap. I didn't care where I went. I just needed to escape. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out, my heart sinking when I saw the name on the screen. Lena. I didn't answer. I couldn't. The betrayal was too fresh, too raw. She had torn apart everything I thought I knew. How could I go back to that? How could I look at her and not see the lies she'd been hiding from me for months? I kept walking, my feet moving faster than my thoughts. The city around me felt empty, even though it was alive with people. I was drowning in my own head, lost in the chaos she'd created. After what felt like hours, I ended up in a small park. I sat down on a bench, my hands gripping the sides tightly, trying to steady myself. But nothing made sense. My life felt like it was falling apart, and I didn't know how to pick up the pieces. I checked my phone again. Another message from Lena. I stared at the screen for a long moment before opening it. Please, Theo, talk to me. I know I've hurt you, but I'm still here. I'll do whatever it takes to fix this. Please don't walk away from us. I read the message over and over, but no matter how many times I looked at it, it didn't change the fact that she had betrayed me. She had lied. She had hidden things from me, and now she was trying to patch it all up with words. I wasn't sure what I wanted anymore. Part of me wanted to go back, to hear her out, to maybe try and salvage something. But another part of me felt like I couldn't trust her again. How could I? How could I look at her without wondering if she was hiding something else? I took a deep breath, staring at the glowing screen of my phone. My thumb hovered over the reply button, but I didn't type anything. I couldn't. Not yet. I sat there in the park for what felt like hours, the night growing colder around me. My mind was a mess, torn between the anger I felt toward Lena and the part of me that still loved her, though I wasn't sure how much of that was left anymore. The messages kept coming, each one more desperate than the last. Please, Theo. I'm so sorry. I can't lose you. They were all variations of the same thing. But what good were apologies now? What good was remorse when everything between us had been built on lies? I could feel my phone buzzing in my hand again, another message from her. I stared at the screen for a long time, unsure of whether I wanted to see what she had written or not. Part of me knew I had to face her, to at least hear her out. But another part of me screamed that I couldn't. I wasn't sure if I could ever look at her the same way again. The cold night air bit at my skin, and I finally decided to walk. I didn't want to sit in one place anymore, trapped by my thoughts. My steps felt heavy, each one echoing in the emptiness around me. I didn't know where I was going, but I knew I had to get away from the house. From Lena. From everything. I needed time to think, to process what had happened. I found myself standing at a small cafe, the dim light inside offering a brief respite from the chaos in my mind. I pushed the door open and stepped inside. The place was mostly empty, save for a couple sitting in the corner. I ordered a coffee, my hands still shaking. I wasn't sure if it was from the cold or the emotion still running through me, but I didn't care. I sat down at a small table by the window, staring out at the street, watching the world go by while my own world felt like it was crumbling. My phone buzzed again. It was a message from Lena. I stared at the screen for a few seconds, letting the moment stretch before I finally opened it. Please, Theo. I'll do anything to make this right. I need you. I know I've hurt you, but I can't imagine my life without you. I made a mistake, a huge one, but I want to fix it. I'll do whatever it takes. I wanted to reply. I wanted to tell her everything I was feeling, every ounce of anger, every feeling of betrayal. But instead, I just sat there, staring at the screen. What was the point of talking? What was the point of going back to something so broken? I thought of the ring, the note, the way everything had fallen apart in an instant. How did you go back from something like this? How could I ever trust her again? I set the phone down on the table, taking a long sip of my coffee. The warmth didn't do much to ease the coldness inside me, but it was something to focus on. The truth was, I didn't know what I wanted. Part of me wanted to walk away and never look back. But another part of me, that part wanted to hear her out, to try and fix things, to somehow make sense of the mess she had made. I knew I had a decision to make, but I couldn't do it tonight. I couldn't decide when my mind was this foggy, when my emotions were pulling me in 100 different directions. I stood up, paying for the coffee, and stepped back out into the cold night air. As I walked down the street, I realized that no matter what I decided, nothing would ever be the same again. The cold night air felt like a wake-up call. I didn't have the answers yet, and I wasn't sure if I ever would. But one thing had become clear. I couldn't keep running. I couldn't live in the chaos of unanswered questions and half-truths forever. I found myself walking back toward the apartment, each step a little heavier than the last. But with each step, I also felt something else, a flicker of resolve. Maybe Lena had made a terrible mistake. Maybe I had been blindsided. But I realized I had to make a choice. Either walk away from everything I had known, or face the mess and try to rebuild. When I got home, the apartment was quiet. The light was on in the living room, and I could hear Lena's soft sobs through the door. I didn't want to walk in and confront her in anger. I didn't want to let bitterness decide for me. I took a deep breath, opened the door, and found her sitting on the couch, her head buried in her hands. She looked up when she heard me, her face pale and tear-streaked. "I'm sorry," she whispered, her voice shaky. "I never meant for any of this to happen. I don't know how to make it right, but I swear, I'll do anything." I stood there for a moment, my heart torn. I didn't want to say the words I had been thinking, the words that would push her away forever. I didn't want to end us. But I also couldn't pretend that everything was fine. I walked over to her slowly, sitting down beside her on the couch. "I don't know what to do, Lena," I said quietly. "I don't know if I can just forgive this. But I also know I don't want to throw everything away. Not without at least trying." Her eyes widened, and she reached for my hand, squeezing it tightly. "Theo, I swear, I'll never hurt you again. I'll do anything to prove it to you. I'll go to therapy. We'll talk about everything. I'll do whatever it takes to make this right. I looked at her for a long moment. The woman who had broken my heart, the woman who had been hiding secrets, was sitting here before me, vulnerable and desperate to fix things. For the first time, I saw the rawness of her remorse. And for the first time, I allowed myself to consider the possibility of healing. I don't know if I can forgive you overnight, I said softly, but maybe we can start again. We'll take it one step at a time. Lena nodded, her face lighting up with relief. Thank you. Thank you for giving me a chance. We sat there in silence, but it wasn't the heavy silence of betrayal. It was a silence filled with uncertainty, yes, but also with the faintest glimmer of hope. Maybe this wouldn't be easy. Maybe things would never be the same. But what mattered was that we were both willing to try, to rebuild, to heal, and to face whatever came next together. And as the night passed, we didn't have all the answers. But we had each other. And that was enough for now.